Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Marina Perry Podcast. I'm your host, Marina Perry, and on the episode this week, we have the amazing Caitlin Eichperger, who is an empowered life coach, and she is going to be unpacking and opening a massively juicy conversation, which I know is very alive for you as a listener. And we will be discussing body confidence, we will be discussing comparison-itis, and we will also be tapping into something that Caitlin specializes in, which is the inner critic, or specifically she helps her clients tame their inner critic. So Caitlin, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And full disclosure, as just because I love to be really honest and authentic, this is actually round 2 of recording this episode for you guys. So Caitlin and I actually did an insanely juicy 1.5 hour long, really deep dive into this topic. It was epic. And then I found out, so if any of my newbie podcasters are listening, do not charge your phone whilst recording on the same device. In any case, there was a buzz that even my amazing tech team could not remove. So this is round 2, but my point in sharing that with you is this is how committed we are to covering this topic, because it is such a real topic. Even if you are someone who associates as liking yourself, if you associate as having a healthy relationship to food or your body, I think we can all relate to either at some point in our lives or some time of the day or some day of the week, dropping in and out of truly appreciating our body or truly being in friendship with our body or really stepping into a battle. So before we get into this conversation, I do want to ask Caitlin what her, I suppose, animal would be that best represents her in personality and why.
Oh, okay. So I have always said, for some reason, it started off as people giving me the feedback that they see a lioness in me. And then one time I was doing eye gazing with myself and I saw a lioness. It was really cool. And for anyone who knows me and has seen my natural hair, it's very mane-like, which I know lionesses don't have manes, but whatever.
In spirit they do.
Yes. And so I would say that I am definitely a lioness because I can be really strong and powerful, but also very caring and loving and nurturing.
Yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment and a great summarization of your spirit and animal form. Yeah. And what would be the superpower if you could have one that you would choose to have?
Ooh, that's I think fly.
Yeah.
To be able to fly.
Because?
It would just be the freest feeling. Just imagine flying, in the air. That would be amazing.
Have you ever done those, where you jump off cliffs or out of planes? Have you ever done that?
I've done bungee jumping. I haven't yet worked up the courage to do skydiving, but I want to.
Me neither. I don't know that I do. I don't know that I genuinely do want to.
I do, but I don't.
Yes.
There's definitely a parts conflict there.
Pause 1 second.
Do you think someone's gonna... Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, good timing.
I saw him coming up the path and I'm like, he's either gonna, I don't know why he needs to tell us that he's here. He's the man. Hey.
Is it alright?
Yeah, of course.
I love how you're hey, okay, go.
Yeah. Stop irritating me. Okay. So we will make a note to definitely get that. But that's perfect time to finish anyway. It worked well. Okay. All right. So let's dive straight into this conversation. How many people do you think, or do you think it's an everyone conversation, or it's not an everyone conversation, but it's a lot of people conversation? How many people are affected by body confidence?
Look, I think in this day and age with the, the societal construct of, body image and beauty and all of that, I think everyone is affected to some degree. And I think that, how it's affected you is going to be different for everyone, and everyone's take on beauty is different. But I definitely think that body image is something that almost everyone, if not everyone in this, on the planet, would struggle with at some stage in their life. Not saying that, you struggle now, because you might have struggled previously and actually be in an okay space now. But I mean, I can even speak into the fact that, I coach people on body confidence, and I have worked on my body confidence and my body image for so long now, because it's been a really big journey for me. And yet I still have days where I feel like shit. I still have days where I feel like, you know, for me, it's like I feel like a whale. And I get to be with those days, and those days are totally allowed. I think that one of the biggest things around body confidence is this idea that we just always got to love ourselves.
Yeah, so that's actually what I wanted to jump in, and a couple of things actually before we jump into this conversation of, is body confidence actually always loving yourself, or is it just being in conversation really authentically and honestly with your body? So I want to sidebar that, but I wanted to just say, when you said before that it's everyone on the planet, and something came up for me, and I want to unpack this with you. Is it really everyone on the planet? Because part of me is wondering, you know, let's say, for instance, a young child in a tribe in Africa who's never seen social media, who's never seen marketing images. Do you think that they relate to their body? I mean, of course they have a body, so of course they have a relationship to their body. But I'm just, as you said it, I was like, is it true that body confidence in the way we discuss it would even be an issue for certain cultures if they don't have the media and that conversation going on?
That's really true, actually, and that's a really good point, because I think that one of the things that affects our body confidence so much, or our body image, I should say, it literally is, you know, the conditioning around what beauty is and beauty standards that have been shoved in our face since the moment we're born, basically. So potentially those, you know, those people who aren't exposed to that, they might not have those kind of, I guess,
it'd be an interesting conversation to have with them, wouldn't it? Because we, you know, if we look at those kind of images, we see them just half naked, or, you know, and there doesn't seem to be, but I'm sure there are still measures and conversations.
Yeah, I do feel like there would still be an element of comparison. So that would be really interesting to dive into, because, like, I mean, obviously within their tribe, there would still be some sort of beauty standard. So it would just be really interesting to know, like whether they still compare, and
or whether it's just like, you are this and I am this, and that's the end of the conversation. It's an really interesting one, because I wonder to the degree to which social media, and particularly, you know, as you said, beauty's always had a standard in society, but now more than ever, it's on our phone every day. We're looking at everyone's lives, you know, their highlight reel often, and it does have a more of an impact. We can come back to that in social media. I know you want to really tap into, because it plays into comparison-itis.
100%.
But you just made a distinction that people may have missed, or we didn't really unpack it. So firstly, what is body confidence in your opinion, and how is it different to body image?
Yeah, cool. So body confidence to me is just, I think that you described it really well before. It's being with your body in a way that you allow all of it to be present, and to, I guess, love it through all of the stages. I don't think that body confidence for me is like just being that person who's always like, yeah, I fucking love my body all the time. Because personally, in my own experience, I don't think that that's realistic. Like, I don't think that that's authentic. So for me, I think body confidence is, yes, having those moments where you feel great and you're like owning it, and you're like, yeah, I love my body, feeling myself, all the things. But it's also being okay with, and allowing yourself to also have those days where you're like, I don't feel so great today, but that's okay. And not trying to pretend that you feel fine, not trying to push it down. Yeah,
and it's kind of also that point, or, you know, I often talk about with my children, this weather versus climate, like understanding that some days we do, like, and, you know, I've often, for me, the biggest awareness of body dysmorphia as being a very real, tangible thing in my life is the logical brain can know that there's no difference, Marina, between, you know, 9 a.m. in the morning and 11 a.m. in the morning when you looked at yourself, but something that I did or didn't do, maybe I ate something, whatever it is, maybe I hopped on the scales, or I don't do that anymore. But in the past, it could be anything that didn't actually physically change me, and yet changed my perspective of me. And that was a big aha for me. I remember in my youth, I was like, well, hang on a second. Like this morning when I looked in the mirror, I thought I was fine. And now after maybe I ate something that I've in my mind deemed as bad, or maybe I've looked at the scales, or maybe I've compared myself to someone, and now I'm looking in the mirror literally a couple of hours later, and I'm seeing something very different.
Definitely.
And so I know dysmorphia does play into this conversation. So if that's body confidence as you've described it, a relationship with your body that's healthy, and I suppose for the most part positive. And I think the biggest
word for body confidence for me is acceptance.
Yes.
It's the acceptance piece. It's not, like, I think that's probably the word that just came to me.
So maybe it's body acceptance instead of body confidence. Yeah. And that feels different, doesn't it? Because we have this association of confidence as always being like up.
Like, you know,
own the world.
Sorry.
So then what's body image?
So my I guess definition of body image is that it's literally just like your body image actually has nothing to do with your physical body and what you actually look like. Your body image is your perception of your body. So when you look in the mirror,
what I was just saying,
yeah.
this just, and I think on some level we all have a level of dysmorphia because we don't actually see what's real. Yeah, and we're looking through the filter of our own eyes too,
exactly.
right?
And we're also looking through the filter of our narrative of what beauty is.
Yeah.
And quite often, you know, that's something that has been conditioned into us to be, you know, something. And so for myself growing up, like I grew up in the era where, you know, it was skinny, like stick thin was attractive. It
like
was,
the Kate Moss era.
Yeah. That's when I was kind of like young and impressionable. And that's when I think I really started to notice my body compared to other people. And I'm not skinny, and I don't have that body type. I'm short, I'm curvy, I have a big butt, I have big thighs. Don't get me wrong, my upper body can be quite lean, but yeah, like I've always had curves. And so growing up with that narrative of skinny or thin is in, you know, whatever it is, skinny is beautiful, I thought that I was disgusting. Like I literally grew up thinking that I was the most disgusting thing on the planet.
And that's, you know, there's so many people, you know, listening who can relate to some level of disowning of their own beauty. And, you know, we have both worked a lot with women and sat in women's circles. And, you know, one thing I know for sure is that if you gather a group of women together and if they're looking across, you know, the circle at one another, they are drinking in an appreciation and an awareness of the beauty of the other almost all the time. Looking at someone going, her hair's so beautiful. Oh, her posture's amazing. Look at her long legs. Look at her brown skin. Look at her green eyes. Look at her curly, crazy hair. My gosh. And then ironically, that might be the very same thing that person is holding in disdain. You know, so it's a fascinating world we live in that we are often, and I know you're a specialist in this, but we're often our harshest critics. So we'll get to that. I'd love to stay around for a second, this conversation of body image and the bathing in conditioning, because you know, for me in my work with sovereignty and wholeness, we need to understand the degrees to which we're conditioned so that we can reclaim truth. And you just said, you know, you grew up Kate Moss. I'm a little bit older than you. We'll just say a little bit because it feels better. And then, so I grew up in the era, and, you know, look, it's not to say I wasn't impressionable around the Kate Moss time, but really what was super impressionable for me was the original supermodels, the Cindy Crawfords, the Helena Christensens. They were curvier, more real-shaped women, you could argue, although Kate Moss is actually a real woman too, right?
Well, so, and I was just going to say...
And so I grew up thinking strong and kind of curvier, but very different to the later generations of the Kardashians, still very different images. And what I wanted to touch on is what I feel is happening right now in good and also I feel restrictive ways inside the body image and the body confidence conversation space is for you to sit here and say, and I'm sitting right next to you, you know, oh, I'm not skinny. There are women who would watch this and almost feel angry at you because they would go, well, you are skinny, sister, because I am, you know, 5 or 6 dress sizes larger than you. And this brings up this conversation of relativity and perspective, right? Which is kind of the whole point of the whole bloody conversation. But what I get upset about, and I'm sure I'd love your thoughts on this, as someone who's owned a health club for 20 years, who's taught nutrition, who has kind of a wealth of knowledge about taking care of yourself, in recent years, as I've gotten kind of super excited about the realness that's showing up on Instagram and and kind of the people showing their cellulite and showing their rolls, I've also kind of found myself pushed to the side because for me to comment, you know, it feels like they don't want to hear from someone who's a certain size or shape about body confidence, even though this is a very real conversation point for me too. So I
totally agree.
Can you share what you think is going on there, where we've got this kind of divisiveness of it's like only big people get to talk about body confidence, and even skinny people have a right to say, well, I've been prejudiced too. Like for me, I can see all of it, but I just feel the narrative is expanded and at the same time in a paradox contracted.
And that's definitely something that I've seen happening in like the body confidence space, is almost this like it's almost like you know, people have banded together, which I love. And I love that, like you said, people are getting real and posting images of, you know, their cellulite, their rolls, like all the things. And it's really creating this space for people who, you know, can look at that and be like, oh my God, like, you know, if they're okay with their bodies like that, I can then be okay with mine.
It's a permission slip, isn't it?
It's a real big permission slip for sure. But what I feel like is also happening within that space is this, like you said, this idea that only people who, you know, have cellulite, have rolls, etc., can speak into body confidence because they've had to work through their shit to get confident. And it's complete fucking bullshit. Like, and I say that because, I mean, I know, like, I've worked in the fitness industry alongside women who are bloody models, like, you know, basically would be deemed by most of society to be perfect or amazing or stunning. Like, you know, they're super lean, like all the things. And they have body confidence issues themselves. They have body image issues themselves. They have insecurities. They have stuff within themselves that they don't like. They pick at themselves. Like, literally, it used to blow my mind because and this was the piece for me where I was like, so you don't see yourself as beautiful either, yet, you know, I see you as this like goddess. Yeah. And so I think what we get to realize is body confidence is for everyone, because it doesn't come down to what your actual body looks like. It comes down to how you perceive your body. So body confidence is for everybody.
Yeah, it's about perception. And if you have a body and you have the ability to perceive, which is being awake and conscious and alive, then you get the right to have a conversation about body confidence.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I remember years ago, well before Instagram, but when I was in fitness, being at dinner with someone, a client actually, but it was a client that was, in any case, it was a conversation where I was just saying, oh yeah, no, I need to whip myself into shape. I've become a bit of a boomba, which is it was like a very playful off the cuff remark. Yeah. And she just got really upset in that moment and was like, well, if you think you're a boomba, how much do you look at all of us and your clients? And to be honest, I'm very often in my own health club walking around thinking all my clients look more, you know, fit and lean than me. So again, here's my perception. But I was like, wow, she's like, I was only talking about me. And interestingly, when I look at all my clients, I don't think those things at all.
Yeah.
But to notice that when I did it, how it offended her. And I think if I look back, that's probably been a catalyst for me not always stepping too far out into the body confidence space because of how people have perceived me perceiving myself. Yeah, which has been interesting.
And I think that what people get to realize is, like, you know, and I think we said it earlier, like, we are our biggest critics.
Yes.
And the way that we see ourselves quite often is different to the way that we see others, because we tend to naturally kind of have more compassion for other people, which is something that we get to change for sure. And so I think that, like, I actually sat in circle recently, and it was like, you know, all of the women, we got naked, and seeing all of the people and all of the different body types, it was actually super healing for me, because I've been sitting in a little bit of a space of I guess falling back into old thought patterns and whatnot recently. And so seeing all of these different body types and seeing the beauty in all of them allowed me to then like flip that and be like, well, if I can see the beauty within all of these people, and, you know, some of them, you know, have roles, like they're just different. But I just like, when I saw them, all I could see was pure beauty.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't see rolls. I couldn't see, you know, the flat stomach or the hair or whatever it was that they were conscious of. I could literally just see pure beauty. And that was it was a huge thing for me, because then I was able to be kinder to myself and flip that and then see the beauty in myself. So I think it definitely comes down to comparison.
So that's where I'd like to go next is you just shared there, and I've had the same experience where looking at other women, I'm just blown away by the beauty, blown away by the beauty. And I've always said that when I had my girls was a big aha for me, because I remember actually it was a very specific moment when they were very young and they had a little curl around their neck, and kind of when you have a child and anyone who has children or has looked really at little children, you can just be awestruck at when I say beauty, I don't mean beauty in the way that we might read about it in books, but more just that divine, crystalline magic of human life force kind of beauty. And I remember looking and just being so enamored. And it's like in that moment, I remembered my own mother would used to kind of look at my curls. I'd get these little sweaty curls at the base of my neck, and she'd be like, oh, you've got a little curl, and touch it. And even her intonation as I could feel the same energy in my beingness towards my daughter that my mother obviously had towards me. And it was almost like this multi-generational download of, so if my mom looked at me like that, the way I'm looking at my child like that, there was beauty in me for her to see it as well. Does that make sense? It was just an awareness.
Yeah.
So you just described looking at women, and in that looking, taking that love, and kind of in the same way I just shared about my daughter, bringing it back. But yet that's not often what happens with comparisonitis. So can we unpack what is comparisonitis? It's massive. Why you think it's, kind of the big issue it is right now. Yeah, and then let's go into what we can do about it. But I'm happy to ask more questions about that when you're ready.
Definitely. Well, so the way that I see it is comparison. First of all, comparison is actually necessary, because comparison is a form of judgment. So the definition of judgment is something along the lines of making an evaluation using discernment and comparison. And judgment is necessary. Comparison is necessary. It's literally one of the things that has helped us as a human race survive, because judgment is the thing that's like, oh, there's a cliff and that's a long fall. I better not walk off the cliff or I'll die. Like, that's a judgment. Comparison can be like in an effective way, looking at how you're different to someone and celebrating both of the differences.
Yeah, well, I like what you're saying there, because the point is that you do comparison every day. Will I have the salad, or will I have the bread roll? Yeah. Will I go to bed now, or will I go to bed later? There are comparisons of options. Yeah. So we are, like you just pointed out, wired from a survival point of view to compare. Yeah. But then where does it go amiss? Because that would be fine if we were going, oh, all options are okay. But really we're going, they good, me bad, me feel like shit, me sad.
Well, and that's exactly it. So that's where, comparison, like I said, is necessary, and it's not wrong. I think that's the biggest thing that I want to get across, is that judgment and comparison are not wrong. Like, we all do it. But comparison becomes ineffective when it becomes, like you said, oh, this person is beautiful and I don't look like them, so therefore I'm less, or I'm not beautiful, or I'm, insert the story. And, that's where and it can also go the other way. This person's different, so therefore I'm better. Like, it can go both ways. But it's essentially comparing. And then, in the instance of ourselves, if we're talking about ourselves, which I think most of the listeners will probably be thinking of themselves, right? When we compare and then make it mean that we're less, we then feel like shit. And we're just like, negating ourselves.
Yes.
So that's the
I think this is a really big piece, actually. So I would like to just expand it a little more, even because in the same way that, again, I've got two girls, most listeners know that, but I remember as a child, when they were children, really trying to paint this picture of like, imagine if the flamingo is looking at the hummingbird and going, oh my gosh, you fly so light, and you just hover in the ground, and the hummingbird's looking at the flamingo going, oh, I wish I was all pink and had really long legs. And that's what we do in society. And yet we as non-species birds, and we as humans look at flamingos and go, oh my gosh, they're like epic. And then we look at hummingbirds, we're like, oh my gosh, they're so epic too. Different, but both epic. And it comes into, I think, a conversation around what I feel you just said was that we are using comparison to weigh options as a win-lose, as opposed to options and available differences. And when 100%. We do that, like, it's kind of like if you were looking at a menu in a restaurant, you wouldn't go, it's the meat pie for me, you lose lasagna, lasagna's the worst ever. Like, you just wouldn't do it in that space, like lasagna's the loser. You would just be like, it's meat pie for me today. Whereas, am I craving carbs? Why did I pick those two up? Anyway, side note. But we tend to do that. We tend to be like win-lose when it's around this. I think that's where it falls into comparisonitis as to healthy observation of comparing options.
And I think my sister actually said this phrase to me, and I loved it. I don't know if she coined it or if she got it from someone else, but it was, when it comes to comparison, we get to compare and celebrate instead of compare and self-negate.
That's
because
great.
That's essentially, where the comparison becomes ineffective, which is the comparisonitis, where, like, if like I shared the story before, and you shared the story before, where we were able to celebrate these other people, like these women's beauty and your daughter's beauty. We were able to celebrate that without making it mean that ours was any less. And that is where comparison can be effective, because it's kind of looking at it and being like, well, you're beautiful, but so are you. You guys look different. Therefore, can I be beautiful as well? Can I see the beauty within me?
Does it get to be an also?
Yeah.
And also conversation. You're beautiful, and also so am I.
Yes.
And also so is she. And so then when comparisonitis doesn't pan out like that, and it really does pan out like, that girl's so gorgeous on Instagram. I'm such a frump. I'm such a, and I know you and I have had the blessing to work with a lot of people. So we, besides being women ourselves and knowing our own inner critic, we've heard it all. Like, we know what goes on, guys. So anything that you think that you're saying to yourself that's just too hectic. I mean, we've all been there. I'm stupid. I'm ugly. I'm disgusting. I hate myself. I wish all the things.
Yeah.
So what do we do though? One, if that's been our pattern for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, we're just so used to beating up on ourselves and making ourselves feel like shit, which of course is a self-fulfilling prophecy then, because imagine how anyone would feel if you've been talking like shit to yourself.
Yeah.
Then you don't really feel like a champion. So it's a hard tide to turn, potentially, and not necessarily. So we'll unpack that. But what do we do if it's been a pattern? And what do we do if we go in and out of it, but we get on social media and it comes up? Like, what are your tips and your strategies?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, essentially when it comes to that voice in your head, we're now talking about the inner critic. And the inner critic is actually very much tied into comparisonitis, which is very much tied into body confidence and body, like, it's all linked. It's all the same thing. And so I actually speak into taming your inner critic, obviously. And so I've got like some tools that I usually give within my workshops, and that's probably the main thing. But it's even like the most effective thing that we can do, I think, when it comes to like comparisonitis and that voice that starts putting us down and beating us up. Like, honestly, the first thing that we can do is just become aware of it. Obviously, observe it without judgment, without getting caught in the story. So like, not allowing yourself to go down the rabbit hole of, oh, she's gorgeous and therefore I'm not, or oh, she's beautiful and she's got the best body and so therefore mine's disgusting. Whatever it is, it's just observing. It's just like being like, oh, okay, that thought's there, being okay with that thought being there. And then there's an allowing piece where it's like also allowing whatever like needs to come up. So maybe it's a heaviness, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's anger, like, but just like being real with what comes up around that thought, or maybe you might even notice the emotion before the thought. Does that make sense?
Yes,
like, you can go either way.
That's very true for me. It's like often a kinesthetic. So what Caitlin's saying is, I'll feel it in my body kinesthetically, and then I'll go, oh, why do I feel that? Then I'll be aware of the feeling or the emotion, and then I'll go, oh, why am I having that feeling or emotion? Oh, because I had that thought. So often it's reversed depending on how you're attuned to it.
Yeah, either way, and it just depends, like Marina said, on how you're attuned to it. Some people are more feeling, some people are more like up here, and I was very up here, which is why initially my steps were to catch the thought. But it's like I've become very aware of the fact that some people feel it first. So it's observing and observing the thoughts, allowing the feelings in whatever way comes first for you. Knowing that there's no right or wrong, like it's just whatever works for you. And then it's just like in that instant, once you've caught it, you're aware of the thought, you then just get to challenge it. And some really great questions, first of all, is to like start digging to be like, what am I making this mean about me? Like, that's a really powerful question. Like, okay, so I'm feeling like shit because I've seen this chick who's beautiful. So what am I making that mean about me? And then, it might be, well, I'm disgusting. I'm not lovable. I'm not beautiful, like whatever it is. I'm not deserved, like, whatever comes up for you. And then you get to start challenging that. And so there are some, really great questions like, is this true? Is this true of everyone or just me? And a really, we've talked about it a couple of times, a really great question to ask is also like, if this were my best friend that I were judging right now, would I still judge them this way? My best friend, my daughter, let's say like, and this is, we're talking about the body confidence space, but even like you make a mistake at work, would you then be like to your best friend, if they came to you with the same story that you've just done, would you then be like, you're a fucking idiot, what the fuck is wrong with you? Or would you be like, oh babe, you're human, you make mistakes, it's okay?
Yeah.
Like,
so extending the same compassion.
Yeah. Also, the next tool that I usually go through is actually reframing.
Yeah.
And this is one of my favorites because it's part of the acceptance and allowing of what is. And so reframing is essentially just noticing any I am statements. So any thoughts where it's like, I'm fat, I'm too skinny, I don't have curves, you know, I'm not curvy enough, my butt's not as good as hers, like whatever it is. And the reason that I offer this reframe is because sometimes when I try and ask myself, you know, like, is this true? Like in this moment, yeah, it is true that I feel fat and I feel disgusting or whatever it is.
Well, and it can be true if you're flat chested. You know, like you're like, well, she's got great boobs, and then someone's like, and I'm flat chested, and then you're like, is that true? Yes, I am flat chested now. So then, yeah, I see what you're saying. It's like sometimes we are lying to ourselves, but sometimes it is a truth that you are not 6 foot. You know?
Exactly.
Like, both Caitlin and I are not 6 foot.
Definitely not 6
foot.
So,
you know, if we idolize only 6 foot and above heights, we'd be like, oh, I'm so sad, I'm a short ass. Yeah. And then it'd be like, is that true?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then where to from there?
Exactly. So that's where, you know, is that true? Then you get to start to ask the questions like, you know, does it being true have to be a bad thing? Like, you know, if someone was to tell me that I had fat thighs, I would get super cut because there's a part of me that thinks it's true. And so then I would get to sit with, well, does it have to be a bad thing that I have fat thighs? You know, do I judge other people and make them disgusting or whatever the thing is when they have bigger thighs? No, I actually think that it's beautiful on some, like on the other women that I see. So like, it's just the challenging piece, but the reframe is more so like, you know, when that thought comes up and it's like, I'm fat, I'm too skinny, whatever it is, that's like a statement of identity. And so anything that follows I am is literally a statement of identity. So we get to reframe it to like, in this moment, I feel fat. So it's allowing what is, like, rather than trying to bypass and pretend that you're actually feeling super good. And
that's actually an important, I'd like to pull that up again because it is true that any I am statements are statements of identity. And to say I am fat is actually not a true statement because you are not fat cells only. You have fat cells. So, you know, it's putting you, often we get the sense of being overwhelmed by emotion, but that's because you made the emotion you, and you made you the emotion literally with your words. So by disassociating one layer, it's like, you know, I am Marina, and Marina in this present moment is experiencing sadness because in this moment she believes herself to be a fat whale. Now, that disillusion or the illusion of that disillusion would, of course, make me feel upset if I didn't want to be a whale. If I, however, wanted to go swim in the ocean and play with the dolphins, that could be a really positive. So that could be where how would be a whale be a really good thing. But I love what you're saying, Nessie, and I'm wondering too if when someone says, like you just said, does this have to be a negative thing? You know, and a classic reframe is, how is this where, or, you know, as I like to say, what's the upside? So, you know, you and I both have what some people for sure, you know, would classify as muscular legs, which at times I'm sure we're like, oh, one skinny legs, you know, because they look better in certain clothes or whatever it is. And then at the same time, I know both of us really like the feeling of being strong. And then it's so we can go, okay, well, I like that my legs can squat, or my legs can, you know, sustain me in movement. I like that I'm smaller because I have a lower center of gravity, which makes me really agile and makes me less likely to be taken out by something flying over my head at a certain height. All these things are wins.
It's a really good point. I literally just had something in my head and it's like
about the
flown
upside.
out of my head.
It was because we were dodging the things that were so little. That's what happened. It's okay. We survived. We're small people.
No, it's about finding the gateway. And I think this is a huge piece when it comes to body confidence, self-love, and body acceptance, like whatever you want to call it. And I think that this perfectly ties into that.
Let's go there. Let's find the gateway. Tell us about it.
So basically it's, you know, a lot of people get caught up, like, you know, when people are preaching body confidence, it's like, just love your body the way it is. And people are like, oh, I fucking don't love my body the way it is because it's not like this and it's not like this and I want it to be like this and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, first of all, we get to look at, you know, what is your narrative of beauty and is that serving you? Is that effective? But then it's also, don't just expect yourself to fall in love with your body like straight away. Find the gateway. Like, you know, for myself, I spent most of my life hating my legs because they were bigger, they were thicker. And like I said, I grew up in the era where thin was in. It was like supermodel, like skinny. And so I thought that I thought that I had fat legs. But now, like for me, it started with just appreciating my legs for their physicality, like, and their strength. Because I do have fucking strong ass legs. Like, I love strength training, and like, I'm so grateful that my legs are strong, kind of thing. And that was the gateway for me to, love on that part of my body with that. And then eventually that grew, and that kind of expanded and allowed me to love the way that they look. And, it just kind of grew from there, if that makes sense. And so finding the gateway, like, what can you celebrate about that part of your body that you're struggling to love? I used to hate that I was flat chested. And now I'm like, yeah, fuck, hell yeah.
You said F a million times. It's already an explicit podcast. This is hilarious. So just go for it.
Now I'm like, I can wear no bra.
Yep.
And I've got a handful. I got enough. Like, it's just finding that gateway of like, how can you love this part of your body?
And I think that kind of like lends to a lot of things. But what I wanted to say about that is, it's about, in I suppose even Dream Builder or any of the work that I like to help people do, which is shift from here to where they want to go. A big part of being able to create the new reality, or allow the real you, the true you, the more whole and higher version, whatever you want to call it, of you to come in, is to be an appreciation of the now. Because when we're in resistance to what is, all of our energy is spent fighting it.
Yeah.
And so when we can come into an appreciation of now, it doesn't mean body confidence. And I'd like us to talk about this, because body confidence doesn't mean that you don't get to have health goals around your body, or that you don't get to have, it's like these days I feel like almost saying a weight loss goal, and everyone's like, oh, you don't have to lose weight. Of course you don't have to fucking lose weight. But if you want to lose weight, then you also get the sovereign right to that bloody choice, because it's your choice and it's your body.
Yeah.
But if we can come from a place of appreciation of what is, and deep gratitude for our bodies, like, think about how it feels to be like, I choose to nourish my body with really high vibrational foods and nutrient-rich foods, because I love my body and I appreciate it. And then guess what? My body might naturally come to a weight point that better suits it, because it's carrying less toxins, then great. But I think we get to also have this conversation where it's like, cool, I can appreciate my body. Like, even this year, there's been times where, due to COVID stress or whatever else, I'm just retaining a little more body fat in different parts of my body, even though my food's the same, even though I'm still training, I'm taking care of myself. And yet I just get to go, cool, this is the stage I'm in right now.
Yeah.
And would I prefer to be would parts of me prefer to be a little leaner? For sure. A little leaner for sure. And then other parts are like, you know what though? You're still lovely. I still love you. We're still healthy. We're still doing good. It's all okay.
Yes.
And so that's kind of where we get to it. I think body confidence doesn't mean every part of you is like, wow, every part of me is awesome.
Yeah. No.
It is, you're still a multitude of parts in your wholeness.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I was going with that, but when you were saying like coming into appreciation of what is, I think that's an important piece of it.
Yeah.
But as Caitlin says, it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
You don't just go from being in fight with yourself to being in appreciation, and finding the gateway, as she's expressed, I think is beautiful.
I think that was a really good point, like a really epic point for people to realize that body confidence doesn't mean that, like, boom, like you are totally okay with your body now and you never want it to change. Like, you're allowed to be confident in your body, accept your body, love your body, and still want it to change. But it's noticing what's the motivation. And I can actually say, like, from experience, like, when I was younger and working in the fitness industry, I felt pressure to look a certain way. And so I was constantly like I was far out. I was like 15 kilos lighter. I had abs, and yet it still wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And that motivation to continually try and lose weight or strip fat or get leaner and all the things, it was from a place of fear. It was from a place of not enoughness and running away from where I am now, which is why it's perfect that you spoke into appreciating where you're at now. What we resist persists, because we're actually putting energy into the thing that we're resisting.
And our focus.
Yeah, and like you said, putting energy into fighting it versus accepting it. And this was a couple of years ago, actually, was my first experience of like just that acceptance of what is, And so I just moved and ate from a place of love because, you know, I moved because it felt good for my body. And I, like I said, I actually love training. I love strength training. I love pushing myself. Like it actually brings me a lot of joy. And I was eating from a place of nourishing my body and allowing myself to, you know, have treats and be super flexible and all the things. It was actually the first time, I think, in years since I first started dieting that I wasn't dieting. And I got the leanest and the healthiest that I'd ever been, and I loved my body and like all the things. But so it's really like you get to notice what's your motivation for wanting to change. Is it, you know, because you feel like you're not enough now and so you have to look this way to be enough? Because I'm just putting it out there, if that's your motivation, it's never going to be enough.
Yes.
Because it's actually got nothing to do with how you look.
Yes.
There's a lot going on deeper.
I would like to actually really kind of maybe raise the point that comparisonitis is something very real for us around external people, but I think it's a bigger issue internally. I think that we are in a greater comparison with either previous versions of ourselves or unseen, never realized versions of ourselves. And by that, what I mean is this perfect reality that isn't actually available. And what we do in that, you know, and you and I both understand this on a deep human behavior level, the reason we uphold these impossible standards is purely and simply so that we can constantly and forever feel not good enough. And so that's what Caitlin's saying is, how many of us listening right now today can literally think back to a time, a photo or something where we're like, damn, I would click my fingers to look how I looked then, feel how I felt then, feel as in have a physical reality of that, and yet remember back to then, and likely at that point you were like, oh, I need to go a little further, or I need to lose a little more weight, because I mean I can put my hand up to that 10 times over. I look back 100%. At photos where I'm like ripped to shreds and thinking, oh, I'm almost there, just a couple more kilos, and now I'd be like, hello, that was like really, you were looking fine, sister. So you are your greatest competition, which is a healthy thing, but also what I would love to ask you is, we often deprive ourselves of being happy in the present moment because we're constantly seeking this actual, never available, because you keep moving the goalpost, one, and two, because it's actually impossible. Maybe you're visualizing someone 10 foot taller than you, you know, completely different body shape, maybe even completely different, you know, ethnicity to you, and you're going, that's the ideal of perfect. Well, guess what? You're never going to meet it. So it's really just a barometer of allowing yourself to feel less and to motivate yourself to be more. So there's the paradox of kind of the stick and the carrot and the stick and the carrot, but it's exhausting. And I suppose my point is who would you be if you just let it go? Like, who would you be if you just went, what if I no longer had to meet that standard? And I think the irony is, or the honest question that I'd love us to sit with is, are we then afraid that we would spiral into the, you know, the slothy, disgusting realm of what we think in our heads?
All the shit and like, you know, becomes
like a whatever in your mind is not attractive. But I think the point is I bet you that wouldn't happen. I bet you that without that constant pressure, you would actually just find a nice midpoint. And as Caitlin and I share, you know, we eat very intuitively, we move our bodies because we like it. It's taken us time to get to this point. But part of it is actually letting go of the illusion of the story of who you need to be.
Yes. And I just really want to share a really good book that changed my perception of food, that if anyone's interested in, you know, going down this path or learning a bit more about it, was actually The Goddess Revolution by Mel Wells. It is literally the book that just started my awareness of how much I was eating from a place of like hating, punishing, fear, all the things, and restriction, and just in a way that's not sustainable. And so like that was the book that shifted my mindset to, you know, like, you know, I got to let go of all the stories around what was good and bad and just eat what I wanted to. And it kind of does just fall into, if you come into this place of like wanting the best for yourself and your body, then you do, like you're going to crave the healthier food. You're going to crave the movement and whatever naturally, because that's what your body does crave. That's when your body feels the best, like not in like the way that it looks, but in like it's running, it's functioning.
Yeah. I think at some point, I don't know if you agree, I feel that, you know, we all have a body, and we can also often tell ourselves the story, well, it's not important, I've got other things to achieve or whatever else in life. But I think you and I, having worked with so many women, really know the cost of this energetically, the cost of this emotionally, the cost of this on the quality of lives. Like, lots of women every day are creating disharmony in their lives and sadness in their being because of the ways that they measure themselves around their basically their appearance.
Yeah.
And, you know, wouldn't it be a different reality if instead of waking up in fight, you woke up in appreciation and you were just in awe of, and I think having had a baby and created life and then watching children grow, for me has really shifted like how I view the human body. And also obviously my own spiritual expansion has had me realize that just as I'm not my thoughts, I'm absolutely not my body. And so therefore I get to simply appreciate it as a gift for this lifetime. And that shift for me has been really pivotal, like to really get, and also just to pause and reflect on the miracle of every moment. Like while we've been talking here, we've been growing hair, we've been slothing skin, we've been digesting food, we've been fighting off infection.
Heart's pumping, our lungs are breathing.
We're breathing in, we're expelling and transforming gases and like moving it through blood and, you know, moving hands and mouths and lips and stuff to work together in a symphony to create the sound that connects our thoughts, that connects us to you. Like, it's a goddamn miracle. Your body is like literally the smartest, most amazing machine on the planet.
And that can be a great gateway, guys. Like just putting it out there.
Yeah, so if you can't come to any other appreciation,
just
then come to appreciate
the absolute miracle that is keeping you alive right now.
And, you know, and I know you've been in the meditations that I run, particularly in Dream Builder, around this, but I like to really put to people that you don't have a better friend than your body. And what I mean by that is not that you've been its best friend, but that it's been your best friend. And it is with you from the day you are born until the day you die. Nothing else is more sure than that. Like, no one else will be with you as long as your body, nor will anybody probably stand for you in the ways that your body stands for you. And by stand for you, I mean work for you, be of service to you, in spite of the ways that you most likely often treat it, think about it, or care for it. Like, I often look at humans and look at the shit that we put into our body and the things that we do to our body, the lack of care we give it, the toxins that we force it to ingest. And then we get shitty at it. We get shitty at it for not doing better and not looking better, but it's like, where else would we do that? Where else would we like throw shit at our cars, put shit into our cars, and then sit there and go, hey, car, why aren't you doing better? But we do it with our bodies all the time. And so if we can take that and flip it and go, wow, this is literally my best friend for my entire life. And one thought that popped up before, and so I want to jump on it right now before it falls out of my head again, is you said before, and I think it's a great frame always. It's one of my favorite questions. It's not whether something's right or wrong, it's does it serve me? And so does it serve you to be in fight with your body? And the answer is no. Well, I mean, really straight up, I mean, come to that realization yourself, but the answer is no, because of the loss of energy, the loss of gratitude, the loss of relationship that would be available.
The frequency that you're vibrating at, like, that's not a healthy
And that's where disease starts, isn't it?
And it's like, you know, there's that saying, like, you can't hate your body into
wellness and health.
Like, like you can't hate your body to be what you want it to be, because it's literally the wrong frequency, it's literally the wrong vibration. And like, it's just, I actually remember the start of my body confidence journey was literally just, I was tired. I was so done. Well, this is my point. It's
exhausting. This is what I'm trying to say is the women who are spending like hours and minutes of every, or, you know, moments of every minute and minutes of every hour and hours of every day, literally just taking themselves to task over things that don't fucking matter. Like, in the scheme of things, you know, and I know they talk about the regrets of the dying, but I bet there's a lot of people who are like, Jesus, I wish I had just appreciated my youth, appreciated my body, and stopped fighting myself all the way. So when I ask, does it serve you? I mean, literally, if you can't change it, especially if you can't change it, then stop fighting it. Like, if you are a certain height and that's it, great, wear heels if you like, but then come to some level of appreciation and acceptance about it, because you're wasting not just your energy but your life force, and that's your life. So this is important work to do. I suppose that's what I'm trying to get to, is we often think about body image and body confidence and being superficial, or really sort of, you know, these kind of like, oh, we'll just be okay with your body and move on. And it's not that simple, yet it is that important.
Yes.
So if you put the time and energy into it, and you do work with someone like Caitlin, and you move through this, you're going to get so much of your life force back, which then makes you more magical in the ways that you are actually magical. You know, more able to be present to life, more in the joy of your beingness, which is what we're here for. We're not here to be in fight with our bodies.
Yeah. And like, I also just want to put out there how important this work is, because like, it's, you know, and this is something that like I've learned from Marina, is that like it's about loving and accepting all parts, right? And your body is a part of you. Like, you are not necessarily your body, but it is a part of you. And the way that you relate to your body is actually a reflection of the way that you relate to yourself potentially. And you can't actually sit in, you know, a place of full self-love or self-sovereignty if you're still fighting that part of you, which is your body. And so this can actually be a great gateway, you know, and it can go either way. You might do the inner work and then learn that spills outward to your body, or you might do the work on appreciating your outside, you know, your physical body, and that can shift inwards.
Yes.
So like it's
either direction. You know, maybe today make a commitment towards coming into greater harmony with your body, and knowing it won't happen necessarily overnight. It could.
Yeah. But just starting to be grateful, like grateful for, you know, just finding that gateway and starting to be grateful for your body, starting to find how you can love and appreciate your body. For me, some of the big things that really helped my body confidence journey, one was actually looking at my body. And this sounds strange, right? Because you'd be like, well, I look at my body all the time. But like really looking at my body, like I remember I would avoid being naked in any instance because I just hated my body that much. Like, I just didn't want it to be seen by anyone or by me. And so like actually sitting there in front of a mirror naked, and you don't have to start naked. You might do it fully clothed to start off with. That's up to you. Again, find your gateway. Find where you can start and build from there. But like sitting there or standing there and looking at my body in the mirror naked, and just seeing it and noticing all the stuff come up, right? Like, because at the start, no, I didn't love my body. I was sitting there fucking picking at everything. But just noticing it and just being with it, like just being with my body. And then just, again, like practicing. The next thing was actually one of Marina's practices that she gave to my sister, who then gave to me. And that was the coconut oil ceremony. And that's, for me, self-touch has been a big part, because again, I hated my body so much that I didn't want to fucking touch it. And so like, you know, touching myself in, like, you know, not even necessarily in a sexual way, right? Like, I'm literally talking about, like, you know, touching my legs, doing like the little tickles on my arms,
just rubbing your body, being in physical touch with your body.
And as you do that with the coconut oil, it's also like, you know, I would start with, say, my feet, and think about all the reasons I'm grateful for my feet. And then I'd move up to my calves, my knees, my thighs, you know, my pelvis, my butt, my pussy, like everything, my breasts. Like everything. And it's really just like giving like some sort of appreciation and gratitude and love to that body part. Remembering it's finding the gateway. Like, how can I be grateful? Can I be grateful for my feet for all of the amazing places that they take me? Can I be grateful for my knees? Because can you imagine trying to walk upstairs without knees?
Or elbows. I say knees and elbows are super unappreciated. Like, imagine life without elbows or knees, just getting in and out of a car. That would be hilarious.
Oh my God, it would be so good. And so it was, some of the things that have really helped me has definitely been looking at my body, self-touch, and then just the gratitude and finding that gateway, and then just practicing a mixture of these things.
And I don't know how I agree with everything you just said, 100% times 10. So start those things, guys. If you haven't done them, start them. And definitely for me, when I notice myself getting busy, and this even pertains, you know, how we relate to our body also pertains and then is an extension of how we relate to sharing our body with another. So, you know, in intimacy. And I have definitely found that when I am struggling to really surrender into my feminine essence and to receive sexually, it actually is more a conversation point for me to make time to be with my body and to touch my body and to go back to my coconut oil processes. And it really is a way of reactivating the beingness, because what you think about it, what we don't see, does it really exist in our worlds? No. So when we're looking at it, when we're touching it, it's very real. It becomes very real, very tangible.
And it just gets you more present with your body. And I think that's something that, you know, for a lot of people who are struggling to love their body or to appreciate their body even, like it is like for me, it was this full disconnection because I just didn't want a bar of it. Like I didn't want to see it, touch it, anything, which was, so it was just the being with my body and connecting with it.
And the thing I was going to add that I didn't get to just then was, I also think it's good practice because everything that we seek to change, and if we're looking to turn a tide, I feel like there's always a muscular part to it. It's a practice, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's also really helpful if you're in the practice of noticing all the negative things or what you deem as unattractive or not ideal, start to find one thing that you're like, that is so beautiful about me. I love it. So for me, it's things like I have great feet. Just if anyone is listening and you need a foot model,
foot model,
I've actually had people on Instagram, we laugh about it because I've had people like seek me out for my foot modeling. I only have little feet, but they're good feet. I got them from my mum and I think they're beautiful. You know, there's no bunions, there's no weird things going on. They're just good feet.
And she always has beautiful nails.
And I do like to paint them. But you know what? That was part of me stepping into my beauty practice. So painting nails, and, you know, that was a big thing for me because it is pretty. Then I look down and I'm like, it's so pretty. And, you know, I love colorful nails, and it's like, oh, my feet look really pretty.
She's got really great nails at the moment.
Yeah, they are. I know we're all looking at they're really cute. Yeah, if you're not on the YouTube, you wouldn't see it. It's the same as my fingers. But so what I was going to say is even for me, it's like my clavicle is something that I really like. But then, of course, I don't like my upper arms, or I don't like my lack of neck. And here's the thing, like, even as I say that, I don't like that, I can feel in my body the shift. Because now I'm focusing on things I don't like, and there's tension in my body, and there's heaviness. But if I go back to talking about my epic feet, why don't we do that for a second? You know, no, but the point is that what we focus on expands, and where we direct our energy is where our life force flows, which is what life is. So your intention and attention, I talk about this all the time, it is the fastest way that you get to create a state shift. So do that around your body. And if it literally means you look in the mirror and you have to say out loud, today I really appreciate, or today I really love on, or today I really recognize the beauty of. And my girls are epic at this. You know, they're like, how fine is my hair today? You know, and I'm like,
so good.
They're just so good. And we just like laugh because it's a totally different generation and they've been raised a totally different way. But, you know, humility in some ways kind of gets to die because I think it's overplaying this humility that stopped us from really appreciating our beauty, our magic, our power. So like fuck humility and just really big up your what is the word, like your like undeniable appreciation of self.
Why the fuck would you not celebrate yourself? Like, to me, it is actually it is something that I just it just irks me, like, because growing up, it was seen as vain if you appreciated how you looked or celebrated how you looked. So even, like, I even had to, you know, put it out there recently, like a year or so ago, that, you know, being a body confidence coach was really fucking challenging for me at first because I felt vain putting forward all this stuff where I'm like, fucking feeling myself, like, you know, all the things. And because growing up, I had that linked with vanity, and vanity is not a good thing. It was really challenging, and I had to kind of, like, you know, move through that. But it's like why would you not celebrate yourself?
Yeah, it's kind of like, see, I feel like it's, you know how I often talk about we're so wired to be selfless. And like I've said to you,
why would you want to be less
why would you want to be less self? Like, isn't the only thing you want to be full of is self? You're yourself, so that you can bring your full self to the wholeness of the community, not so that you're separate from, but so that you are fully playing out for yourself and the world. Like, selflessness is just ironic to me. You want to be most full of self rather than someone else's ideas of self.
But then even noticing that phrase, oh, you're full of yourself.
Yeah, but that's brilliant.
Why would you not be?
Why would you not be full of yourself, right? And
what else would I be full of?
Well, so then around this, like, appreciation, and, you know, we know the world is holographic, so the degree to which I can even really drop into more appreciation of myself, therefore the more appreciation I can have for other too.
It's that,
it is
that mirror,
and the more permission slip I'm giving another to go, hey, maybe I'm doing it right too, maybe. And this is we've been talking a lot about body, but these principles apply in capabilities, they apply in, you know, all of your skill sets, all of your magic, because but I think that maybe the distinction here is that we feel like we just rolled the dice and we got what we got when it comes to our body, whereas we can work on the other stuff. But and what do you think when people, you know, there's a big push at the moment to go no filters, no makeup, you know, none of this stuff, and to just I get quite triggered by that because, as you know, I've had a journey around appearance. I really grew up thinking I was smart, not pretty, and found relationships that affirmed that, and it was really only, and it's still something that I work with. And so I just wanted to drop in and, you know, for people listening who are like,
it's a really great question.
Yeah, I want to step into confidence, but I'm not comfortable not wearing makeup, or I'm not comfortable. I mean, I train without makeup. I don't wear makeup most of the time. But when I get recorded or I want to go on, you know, Facebook or Instagram, I definitely often don't, because I think I don't look like, if I'm just sharing 100% authentically with the people listening, that's a thing for me. Yeah. So I am super impressed by people who are just like, this is me, and they're just showing all the things.
I'm not gonna lie, that's me. I'm like constantly doing stuff without makeup.
Yeah,
but there's nothing like, and that's a great question. And what I want to get at is, there's no right or wrong. Like, first of all, we are wired as humans to want to look good. Like, we want to look good because when we look good, we then feel like, I guess, we will be judged less or will belong more.
Yeah, and even from a procreation, really, you know,
we want to
primal
look good to
energy.
call in
It's
partner
peacocking,
so
isn't it?
Procreate. So, like, I actually think that, first of all, there is absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to get dolled up, wanting to put some makeup on, wanting to get your nails done, wanting to get your hair done. I mean, look at me right now. I've got fucking makeup on. I've straightened my hair. I've, you know, put my jewelry on. I've put my, like, dress that I feel good in, because I want to feel good. And this is actually a really great question, because I spent most of my life, and this is why I'm so comfortable not wearing makeup, by the way, and it actually started as a really ineffective pattern. I spent most of my life believing as well that I was not beautiful, but not just that I wasn't beautiful, but I wasn't allowed to be beautiful, because I had experiences where me showing up where I was dressed up or dolled up made other people uncomfortable. And so it was kind of this, well, I better shrink and, like, you know, not wear the makeup, not do my hair, not be pretty, because then other people are more comfortable around me. So it just became this, like, shrinking. And so for so long, like, I was always that person who, like, never really wore makeup unless I was going out. And now I'm at this stage where I'm like, actually, you know what? I'm going to the shops and I wanna feel good, so I'm gonna put some makeup on. And I like doing lives when I have makeup on versus not makeup. Doesn't stop me, but, like, obviously I'm gonna, if I'm feeling good, then I'm gonna, like, my energy is gonna be a bit more potent.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes too, there's a point, and I listen to women, and you know me, I'm always a bit of a devil's advocate. I think that's just the nature of what I do. But, you know, when they're like, oh, well, you know, she's had work, or you know that they get the Botox, or they get the whatever. And I'm like, just pause for a second. If you color your hair, if you have had braces, if you get a facial, we are all doing things. Different levels, sure, different lines in the sand for sure. But we're all doing things that we think enhance our appearance in some way. Some of us are drinking green juices, not because we like the taste of them, because we think they make our skin better. So my point is that I would really love to call all of us towards owning the fact that it's normal and natural, as you said, to want to look good and to feel good. And instead of projecting judgment on another, which we know judgment, as you said earlier, is natural, but the kind where it's like you win, I lose, or I'm better than you because look at you trying so hard over there. And just really go, cool, I see you doing life your way. Good on you. How is that relevant to me, not relevant to me? Like, just that whole you be you, me be me, because I do feel like you know, sometimes there's this sense of, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but more just, you know, just notice that in your world. If you do certain things to feel good and yet you judge others for the things they do to feel good. And I think that gets to end too, if we want to come into, you know, really deep connection with each other.
I think when it comes to, you know, wanting to look good and, you know, even like you said, the getting the work done, like I think one of the things that, again, it comes down to is, like, what's the motivation? Is it effective or is it ineffective? And then the person who's judging, you just get to notice that, cool, that's my rules for life. They have their rules for life. And, you know, they get to live their life, you get to live yours. But I mean, I've had, you know, my sister's had a breast augmentation. Some of my best friends have had Botox and, you know, they've told me about it. And I know for certain that my sister getting her boobs done, that she was very much about, I'm not getting this done. Like, so she'd had 4 kids, just to, like, you know, give you a bit of backstory. She'd had 4 kids and had gone from, like, you know, double D boobs to, you know, next to nothing. They were quite saggy, like all the things. So she wanted to get them lifted and, you know, breast implants for herself. And so the difference between, I guess, the motivation is getting it done so that she feels better around other people, so that she gets acceptance from other people, so that she gets validation from other people, versus she was like, she worked on loving her breasts the way that they were. And it was in that point where she could come at it from a place of, I love and accept where I am, but I also would like to have full boobs again. Like, you know, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And my best friend, like, you know, who gets Botox, like, awesome, babe. If that's what works for you, if that's what, you know, feels good for you, do it.
Yep.
Like, you know, I personally haven't, and I'm not going to say I won't, because who the fuck knows. But at this stage of my life, I don't want it. But I'm not going to judge her, because that's her choice. And like you said, I make myself feel good in other ways. And so it's really just that.
I think it's important. I think maybe what I'm trying to say around this point is, if you can drop into the degree to which you are tough on yourself, remember that everybody walking the planet journeys with that at some point and in their own way, and potentially to way deeper, darker levels than you. You know, I reference this quote a lot, and as a coach who's done deep work with so many people, I like to say that if we were to throw our problems in a pile, we would very quickly grab our own back. And I've had the blessing of really knowing that on a true level, that, I mean, you know, there are times obviously when life is wonderful and flowing, and then for most of us, we're moving through things kind of consistently or at different degrees all the time. And so part of not judging someone is really understanding that on some level we're always all doing things for a good reason on some level. And generally that level is to feel good, or to feel accepted, or to feel safe. And if we can come toward people with that awareness, I think it softens it all for us. And then maybe it also lessens their need potentially for those things. But yeah, it's an interesting point to raise. And, you know, if you've got friends and you notice that you judge them, or maybe you even do some justification around it. Well, it's easier for them, or, well, that's because they get this or they get that. Like, go, well, cool. You could get it too if you wanted it. So yeah, just noticing where you build the walls where we don't need them, I think is something we get to do too. So Caitlin, we've kind of gone all over the place, and I've loved the conversation, because I think this is the kind of conversation that women either are having with each other or wish they were having with each other. And it's not just women, and I do want to say that for the men listening too, or, you know, if there are men out there, and even women who think that the body confidence and body image
is a women's thing. It's
definitely not.
Like, I would actually say that men probably suffer like with body image issues and whatnot just as much as women, but it's not put out there as much. Because I mean, like I guess it's easier for women to, no, I don't want to say it's easier for women to voice it, but I think it's just that more women have voiced it, and so it has become a bigger movement for women.
Yes, definitely though. Men struggle with their physical reality a lot, you know, and often in different ways to women. You know, they don't like, you know, the same way that women might not like to be called heavy, men don't like to be called skinny or light, you know, and or vice versa. Like, obviously it's different for different men, in the same way that a really skinny woman doesn't want to be called skinny potentially, because that might be her trigger point. And we walk in times where political correctness is like a time bomb every step you take. And that saddens me a bit, because I think intention with where we speak from needs to become more important than sometimes the words we say, because everybody's map is different. And we don't know, we can't walk on everybody's map with clarity, especially before we step on it. You know, we don't know until we've stepped on the bomb. So Caitlin, thank you so much for sharing so much of your wisdom in this space. And just just to kind of rapid fire finish off, if anybody's listening and they wanted to access more energy today, what would you suggest they do?
For me, I would say movement. And that could be gym. It could be yoga. It could be Pilates. It could be dancing.
Yeah.
It could be walking. Like, it can be anything but movement.
Move the body. Yeah, I agree. I love that. And then what would you suggest they do if they just wanted to feel a little more empowered today?
Ooh, that's a good one. Empowered. See, I just think that it comes down to like doing something where you choose you. Like, choose you today.
Value yourself.
Do something where you choose you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Spend 5 minutes laying in the sun or meditating or dancing. You can tell what I like to do.
Yeah. Yes, we can. And then what would you suggest for anyone who wanted to feel more expressed, if they're feeling like they are hiding themselves from the world, or, you know, what's your number one tip for more full expression?
I think my number one tip there would be like, well, it starts with self. So like, again, it comes back to that piece of like accepting and loving all the parts of yourself. And once you're then able to love and accept them, you're able to express them more.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I agree. And so if we were to distill your message to the world down into one note that gets put into a bottle, or one little earwig, or one billboard, you get the drift. Like, what do you think in your life you've really learned is true that you would say, hey guys, just remember this?
Okay. I think, and I actually think I said this last time, but I think it would just be like, you are perfect, whole and complete just as you are. And like, where you are is perfect. Like, wherever you are in this moment in life is perfect.
I love that. Thank you for being a guest on the show. I'm sure a lot of you got a lot of value from this chat, or at least like, even I think sometimes when we talk about, you know, takeaways, sometimes the takeaway is like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. Oh my gosh, I've had that thought. Oh my gosh, that's true for them too. You know, so it's that feeling of connection. So if that's all you got from today, that's actually massive, and that makes us happy, I'm sure. And then if you got some beautiful tips there from Caitlin about how to address, you know, your comparison-itis and your inner critic, those are huge takeaways, guys. So I hope you took some notes, work with it, reach out to Caitlin. We'll put all of her information in the show notes. Screenshot, tag if this was valuable, share it so that other people around watch and listen. We would love more people, you know, to hear this, so that they too can recognize that we are all the same. Or as I like to say, I see you, I am you, and I love you, because when I love myself, I am loving you, and when you love yourself, you're loving me, and that's the whole point. So thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you on another episode real soon, guys. Have a beautiful day, stay amazing, and remember to live your light.